welcome back to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and of course, I'm joined as always with my co-hosts Jimmy Marion and Darian Smith. And we've got an NCAA tournament special for you guys and girls today. Obviously, UAB, the 12 seed, matching up with the 5 seed San Diego State this Friday afternoon at 12:45. But before we get into discussing that game and previewing that game, this episode and all episodes of the Blazer Victory podcast are brought to you by Cahaba Brewing Company. And speaking of watching the game, this Friday we are going to have a big watch party at Cahaba Brewing Company at 12:45. And I know that the UAB Athletics did just announce that they're going to have their own watch party again. But we certainly hope that Blazer Victory listeners and fans will come out to Cahaba Brewing Company. They're going to have happy hour specials, $5 pints, $5 mixed drinks, lunch specials at the Current. And we've all talked about on this show how much we love the Current, the food truck. So we definitely hope that everybody can make it out again this Friday, 12:45 to Cahaba Brewing Company. And thank you again to Cahaba for sponsoring this podcast. But guys, this is a really good matchup on paper between San Diego State and UAB. And I'm going to throw it to Darian first because I know he's our scout expert, and he was sending us some messages earlier on in the week in the Blazer Victory text thread. Darian, what stands out to you when you kind of watch film of this San Diego State team?
Well, I'm gonna do this first because I probably can get chatty on this topic. So before I get chatty, I wanted to see if if either one of you guys found any stats or if y'all looked at anything that y'all find interesting. I can just tell off one of y'all.
All right, Jimmy, you're the stats guy, man. Yeah, come in.
Well, I mean, you look at the statistics and you look at the comparison between UAB and San Diego State, and some of the obvious things that stand out is just how prolific the San Diego State defense is. I mean, just across the board, almost in every defensive statistical category, San Diego State is the preferred team over UAB. At the same time, UAB has a lot of statistics offensively that are either A, comparative, or B, that they are more proficient in offensively. Some things that I saw when I was just looking through the stat line would be San Diego State's not a efficient three-point shooting team. So offensively, that was one thing I noticed right away. Obviously, they do a lot of their offense going to run through Ladie, who I'm sure we're going to talk about at length today. I mean, some of their statistics defensively, whether it be points per game, they're top 50 in the country, average scoring margin defensively, top 50 in the country. I mean, the way that they're essentially holding teams, effective field goal percentage wise, shooting percentage, shooting efficiency are all in the top 30-ish, like in the country in Division I basketball. So just to kind of get us started there, and I think a good place to start is just to talk about how locked down San Diego State is defensively and how perimeter shooting and shot making for the UAB guard is going to be certainly a point of emphasis in this ball game.
Yeah, so that is a great place to start. I think when I was texting y'all and when I released a quick scout look on Twitter, it was the first thing I mentioned was like, hey, the defense is real. Like, stats is one thing. When you hear stats, you're like, oh, it's defensive stats. Like, but when you go look at them play, you're like, oh, they are like that on defense. And it made me think of a question that Trey Ragland asked me on Twitter. He was like, would you rather play FAU or SDSU? You know? So you think like, And I think that's a tough question, but I would say SDSU because it's two like forces colliding, right? Like we have a good offense, we have a good defense. Well, who's going to overpower? And whoever overpowers that, that's who wins the game. But playing a team like FAU is kind of like, you better hope you're good on defense that day because their offense is so efficient. So you're like, oh, man, I hope we're up to the task because if you fall behind, they can get the rolling and it's tough to stop. So I think we'll have more opportunities to get the rolling. But, man, if they shut our water off and we let them score, or Ladie, if the thing that's scaring me if he like gets us in foul trouble, and we're gonna get to that because he's a free throw bandit. Like I went through some of his game logs, and you look at his free throw splits, he shoots a lot of free throws. Like I stopped looking at points per game, and I just started I stopped looking at how many points he was scoring. I would just start looking at how many free throws he was shooting each game, and I was like, golly. So he's physical, but I'm gonna get to the offensive side. Defensively, their ball pressure, their guards, they're up into you. Ladie is a legit two-way player. He's legit. Like he's big, about 6'9", physical beast, like muscular. He's not lean. But at the same time, he can move. He's quick, lateral quickness. So if he switches out on the guard, he can do that, no problem. So these guys, they are for real. They really remind me of North Texas or SMU. But I think they even have better ball pressure. So the key is turnovers. They're not the best in generating offense, but a lot of times your defense can generate offense for you. If they turn us over and they get off into the open court and they get easy ones, that's not a good sign for us. I'm gonna tell you that. If that happens, we don't win. I think this is a game where Eric Gaines and Yaks probably equally, but Eric Gaines probably going to be the most important guy because he's the guy I trust the most. Butter can sometimes be bothered by ball pressure. He can turn the ball over. Ortiz can be bothered by ball pressure at times. Gaines is the one that can handle it when he's not being laissez-faire with the ball. He can handle the pressure. So he's going to have to play big minutes because they're going to be up in our jersey. They're going to be challenging us, and we're going to have to meet force with force in this game. We can't sit back. We can't over dribble. We cannot over dribble one-on-one. No, we're going to have to run set plays. Alejandro Vasquez off of those pin downs. When the shot is there, put the shot up. I don't want to see nobody trying to do too much, trying to go to the hole. If you do, it's going to be a turnover. It's going the other way. And or it's going to be a bad shot, and they're going to try to run and get in transition. So I want to see us get shots up. I know we was talking about shot making. Yes, you want to make them, but I want to get them up. The reason I'm saying that because at least we'll get a chance to get back and get on defense to where they have one central person that we can focus on. Everybody else is kind of okay players, like Saunders off the bench. He can shoot, pretty okay. But we have a chance to play defense if we get shots up and it's a miss versus turnovers. So I'd rather us just get shots up, try to get the best shot we can. We're not going to get – all of our shots aren't going to be the greatest of shots. So, like, Butter and those mid-ranges, we need those. We need quick decisions. Yaks, please, like, just get the ball, go. JD, get it and go. If you let them set up and load up, we're not going to score. We can score it, but we have to just be smart about it. That's all. So this is going to be the key point. If we see guys acting confused with the ball, just like, oh, they're shutting us down on this set, I'm going to kind of slump my shoulders a bit. I'm like, come on, guys, you're scaring me, But if we can make quick, smart decisions, get the shots up, and crash, they are kind of susceptible to offensive rebounding, and we have good offensive rebounders. Crash, Yaks, JD, Coleman, Crash, other guys get back, and let's see what we can do. If we can get whatever little cheap points we can get in transition, off putbacks, we need those because I think we have enough defensively to hold up with their offense, especially with their shooting.
And should we anticipate, Darian, primarily man-to-man, full court press, switch everything from San Diego State? So we're probably going to see little zone, despite UAB not being a good three-point shooting team to begin with, but they're just going to lock you down, right? That's what we anticipate.
Most definitely. If I was them, there's no reason to go zone against us. Mm-hmm. They have the guys, they have the defensive personnel to match up. Even Jay Powell, the other big, He's very mobile. He's not nearly as big or as lethal offensively, but he's more of that Christian Coleman type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Coleman is a better player overall than Powell, but Powell is the same archetype to where he's tall, lean, he'll crash the boards, he can switch out, he can do everything defensively they want him to do. So there's no reason for them to go zone. They're gonna press us. If I was San Diego State and I'm looking at film, I see that we can be susceptible. Like I see Vasquez sometimes when he tries to get into the lane, he loses it. Gaines has done it before, but is not the most athletic. He's skillful, but he's not athletic. And when you get into him, he can turn it over and get into bad decisions. I would press us the whole game with their personnel that they have. They're able to do that. I don't know if they'll full press the whole game, but I really anticipate them going man to man, playing tough ball pressure as soon as we cross half court, playing ball pressure defense. And if you want to get a pick, fine. We got the best two-way player in the country. You know, he's gonna switch out on you. And then what you gonna do? What's the next step?
And just to add,
team is facing shot clock violations, and just it was tough.
Just to add, Jimmy, with what Darren just said, I've watched a couple games, and I don't think I saw them go zone once. Like they are a strictly man defense and full press. So yeah.
And see, that's what concerns me a little bit is just inbounding the ball against the full court pressure. We've seen at times like getting trapped in the corner and creating. There even, I don't know if it was a Temple game or against South Florida, like a couple of reviews they had to do to go off gains like on the sideline. So it's almost like I'm more concerned about just getting the ball inbounds and not getting immediately trapped, versus EG when he's able to break away and create those transition opportunities for UAB. So that's certainly going to be something is after those made basket. Is UAB going to be able to successfully inbound the ball and get it across court just to even get set up, But I like what you said about EG because I couldn't agree more. He's playing great basketball right now, and I do have a lot of trust in EG handling said pressure. And I think about just how tight defensively they play, Darren and John. Is that going to help us? Are they susceptible to getting themselves, not necessarily the D, who, again, I know we'll talk about, but are they going to create opportunities for UAB to score with the shot, with the clock stopped at the free throw line? Because we know UAB likes to get to the line. So is that pressure that they're going to be applying, the way they play defense one-on-one, and the way that UAB is able to draw fouls, is that going to potentially be an advantage where UAB is going to be able to do what they do best, which is getting to the free throw line and taking advantage of those opportunities?
I think so. I think the way that I like to play against full court pressures, you meet fire with fire. If they're going to pressure you and they kind of want you to be in this passive state to where they can get those traps, right? But if you are hell bent on, okay, if you're going to play up on me, I can blow past you. I can get all the way to the rim. Let's put the pressure back on them. Bag up a little bit off of me. Like, if you play up on me, I'm going to go past you. I can go finish at the rim, right? Or if you're gonna send help at the rim and you got somebody stepping up, I can dish it off to my big man down here or down low. If we get those, we can have post opportunities against them. And I don't want to see post opportunities against Ladie. He's good at drawing fouls, but he's also really good at not getting into foul trouble. So I would like for us to see our guys in the post make quick decisions and go and see if we can get a couple fouls that way, maybe.
I like what you said about Ladie. Just one note on that before we toss back to John is that that's always only fouled out. I think it's twice this season. There's only been 3 games in which he's had 4 or more fouls. So the stats certainly support that Ladie is not even really finding himself in foul trouble, which is unfortunate because before I even, start, the first thing I thought about was, man, if we can get our AAC Defender of the Year and get a couple post-ups. JD's good at drawing fouls. Christian Coleman can take him off the dribble and maybe get him in a couple of fouls for that first Mia timeout. We'll be in good shape. But it's like, well, it could happen, but the stats definitely don't support that.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Jimmy. I mean, it really is. It's going to boil down to, can our bigs stay out of foul trouble against Ladie? Like, you guys just mentioned, Ladie is only fouled out a couple of games. On the other hand, what Darian was just saying too earlier, where he gets to the free throw line a lot. So if Ladie is able to get Yaks, JD, Christian Coleman in foul trouble. I mean, I feel like that's worst case scenario for UAB. And I mean, we can kind of see how the game's going to go. But in turn, if we can force Ledee into uncomfortable situations, Andy's going to double him. There's going to be two guys on him. If we can just force him into a couple early fouls and get his butt on the bench, I mean, then that's the other way around it. This game could go in UAB's favor. Because let's face it, I mean, San Diego State, we talk about how they're a top 5, top 10 defensive team in the country. But offensively, I mean, they're no juggernaut. I mean, yes, Parrish, and I mean, there are a couple guys that can make shots, including Ledee. But if you get Ledee on the bench and force somebody else to come into the game and take over, I like UAB's chances that way. But I really can't wait to see Ledee against Yaks. I mean, for those that don't know, Ledee 6'9", 240. I mean, big guy, averaging 21 points per game. He can hit you with the mid range. He's got a smooth stroke, like Darian mentioned at the free throw line. But Yaks should be up for the challenge. I mean, he had a hell of a AAC tournament, a hell of a March actually. And Christian Coleman's had a really good March. So I think both of those guys should be up for the challenge. And again, we're going to need Javian Davis to play better. And hopefully that he's going to be up for the challenge this Friday afternoon.
Yeah,
Darren, you think?
Yeah,
I was going to say, do you think it's good to transition to the San Diego State offense, or do you have another comment on defense?
Yeah, that was kind of the lob.
Yeah,
but that was the transition to go to the offense. What you got for us for the offense?
Well, we talked about it already a little bit on the front end, but when you look at San Diego State offensively, I mean, stop me if you've heard this before, but really, what's interesting is that really the only kind of categories that they're even top 100 in Division I are all related to offensive rebounding and getting to the free throw line. So for any of you that thinks that UAB might have struggled from the three-point line this season, San Diego State shooting just over 30%, 31.3% from three-point range, and they'll take more threes than UAB per game. So they're taking 22 threes a game compared to UAB at 18 threes per game. So they'll still put up a decent margin, but they're certainly not efficient from three-point range. And just looking really across the board, even something like effective field goal percentage, they're at 49.8%, which is 219th in the country. So offensively, I know Darren may want to touch on a few of these guys, but it's going to be a bad sign if we come out early in the game and San Diego State hits like 3 threes before the first media timeout. So like, what the hell is going on? Something I thought was interesting was this San Diego State offense is susceptible to scoring droughts. So I don't know how much of the New Mexico game that you watched, but they didn't score a point over the last 6 minutes, which is pretty wild. And also during conference play in the Mountain West, I think they shot 30% from three. And UAB in the season, if I could find it here, is at 33%, which is 223rd in the country in Division I, and they're worse at 30%. So not a good three-point shooting team. We've talked about Ledee, but I know, Darian, you had noticed some of the other guys. I know they've got a pretty big wing, right, like 6'5" or 6'6". Their backcourt is a little bit smaller. They got, I think, a 5'10", a 6'2" guy, but all these guys are experienced. Like all these guys, whether they're from the last year's team or they came in via the transfer portal, they're tough. Especially their wing that they have is a tough guard. But I know, Darren, you might want to touch on a few of those guys individually.
Yeah, so the reason that I more so like our chances against them, like I say if it was against the FAU, we know the type of players that UAB struggles with. We know every team, you can look at our defensive metrics and say, okay, they're bad in this area or they have a bad defense, but you have to dig into what does that mean, right? We have a pretty okay defense. Like we can go in there and we can play defense. The thing we were always susceptible to is like EG is a lean guard, Butter is not the most athletic. Ortiz is not big. We are not big at the guard position, right? or we're either not big enough or we're not mobile enough, specifically at guard. And at the big spot, we're pretty good, and they don't have a player to exploit that. When you look at Trammell and you look at Butler can get it going sometimes, but he's like, it's inconsistent. I would say our scores, their stats might reflect differently, but I would say our scores are like, if you go from Vasquez to Butta to EG, I think they all offensively are more capable than their guards are. So they don't really have the guards to exploit our specific weakness, right? I do like Parrish. Parrish is 6'6". He's their 3. He can get it going from deep. Sometimes he can get in there. He can rebound. He can mix it up. But I think Vasquez will be a good cover for him because Vasquez he's physical. He can get in there. He can rebound. He's done it a couple times. So I think this is where we can possibly get them to go on the scoring draw. So Ledee is going to be a problem. But I think we have like the perfect person to cover Ledee, who's built just like him. Probably, I would say, when looking at him, I think Yax is a little taller, a little bigger, to be honest. And I would probably start Yax 1-on-1. But if he gets one foul, I was like, all right, I'll put Coleman on him and I'll send a light double. That's what I would do. But from the start, if I would say Yax, just play solid defense, stay down, because Ledee is skillful. He can hit turnaround jumpers. He can pop threes here and there. I think his main asset is that his skill mixed with his physicality. Right, he has more skill than Yax as far as like being a one-on-one post scorer. He has more counters. He has better footwork when it comes down to that. So, but that doesn't scare me about drawing the foul. I think most of the time he draws the fouls because he's like hard to box out. He's just strong and physical. Like he can get the ball going in transition. Like he can get it and go. He can get fouls on players that way. But I think one-on-one on the block, just passing it to him. If he can score 1-on-1 on Yax, I say go try. You know what I'm saying? Go see what happened. I would want to see it. Hey, Yax get one foul. Okay, Coleman, you get on him. We're gonna just send a double. We're gonna force those guys to hit shots. Now, if you hit one, hit another one. Right? Still close out to him, but I wouldn't close out hard to him. I'm not gonna send him to the line, let them attack or close out and get a foul drawn or something like that. So all that to be said is, I don't think their offensive strengths, whatever offensive strengths they have, I don't think they explored our defensive weaknesses, even though overall defensively we are the weaker team by far. But I think that our offensive strengths can exploit whatever weaknesses they have. They don't really have any weakness on defense, right? Let's just say rebounding. They can give up some offensive rebounding. They can be susceptible. I think that we could probably get in it and cause some trouble, at least slow them down in transition.
Real quick, Darren, I was just noticing, from the New Mexico game, they kind of struggle sometimes with the pick and roll. And I think UAB is one of the teams that can pull off successful pick and roll action. So expect Andy to probably try to do that a lot early on just to see what happens. But I know we're running along. Jimmy, I know, do you have anything else to add?
Well, I saw a few interesting things just like looking at the team and their performances as a whole. So I kind of want to just briefly give you here's the positive, optimistic view, and here would be the contrarian side of that. So looking at San Diego State, let's start with this. So the first thing I noticed is that San Diego State, in my opinion, does not have a bad loss this entire season. So I was looking at their losses, and they've lost to Boise State and New Mexico twice, both through the NCAA tournament. Nevada, Utah State, BYU, Grand Canyon, and Colorado State all once. They're all in the NCAA tournament. And then you have UNLV, and I might be forgetting somebody who is in the NIT. So it's like every loss they've had, based on how great their schedule was and how good the Mountain West was this year, 0 bad losses. And also, when you look at some of their performances, they beat St. Mary's by 25 in November on a neutral court. St. Mary's is a 5 seed. That's a pretty big win. And then they beat Gonzaga in Spokane. I guess that's probably at a different arena, though. I don't know if Gonzaga plays at the same arena.
It was a neutral court.
Neutral. So they beat Gonzaga, and Gonzaga was ranked number 13th at the time. Now Gonzaga's fell off a little bit, but they still are a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. So they've had a really nice season, but at the same time, some stuff that I thought was interesting was, first and foremost, they're 2-3 over their last 5 games. So it's not like they're coming into the NCAA tournament on a winning streak, as UAB is, as well as when you look at some of the betting stuff. So San Diego State is 13-19 against the spread this season. So that's not necessarily reflective of win-loss. We know the line opened up, I think it was 7.5. It's currently at 6.5 right now, versus UAB, who's 20-12-1 against the spread this season. And UAB is also 3-1 against the spread this season when they were at least 7-point underdog. I know it's 6.5 right now. But by that, I mean, I actually walk into games like this where we are 5, 6, 7-point dogs, and I'm feeling better about that than we've seen in recent, games where we might be a 5, 6, 7, 8-point favorite. So I'm very comfortable with UAB being the underdog. And in fact, UAB has been an underdog in 12 games this season, and they've won 8 of those 12 games.
Oh, that's a nice.
So that's 67%. So it's like a lot of stuff that Darian was talking about matchup wise. I certainly agree with. And then I'm listening to these different shows about the NCAA tournament. I was listening to one yesterday on my run, and they're like, let's talk about 5-12 matchups. And they talked about every single 5-12 matchup besides ours. Essentially, it's not even worth talking about. We've heard people like Matt Norlander say that SDSU should get through here without even breaking a sweat. I'm just sensing some disrespect for UAB right now. You know what's great about that is I just love the underdog. It's always been underdog mentality with UAB sports in general. So I just like the storylines heading in here where it's like all the cutesy 12-5 upsets or James Madison or one of the other guys. And it's like, great, because that's usually what happens in March Madness, right? Is just when all the trendy stuff, everybody's looking at the other games. It's like, no, it's the one that you're not expecting. And so I just kind of feel a little bit better about just the storylines heading in this matchup.
And the thing I would end on for me is, a lot of times people look at the whole season to tell the story, right? They look at the whole season. But one thing even Coach Kennedy said it himself. Sorry, my page is going off. But even Coach Kennedy said it himself. He said, this team has grown and developed more than any team that I've ever coached. I've done this for a long time. Go back and look at some of the lineups that we were playing and see how many minutes. See how many of the guys that are so important now. Look at the type of shots and look at the type of stats they were putting them. They were barely shooting. I remember y'all talking about Yax in the beginning, and y'all was talking about his confidence and he's got to get there. And it was so much. We were starting James White, right? Tony was playing 30 minutes a game. JD was playing 35 minutes a game. You just go look at some of the stuff Eric Gaines did not know where to get his shots from. He still was an ill-fitting piece. Christian Coleman was playing a lot one game, and then one game he didn't play at all. Yax was coming off of the bench. We was just trying to figure it out. Ortiz could not buy a shot, and defensively he was a liability at the time. It was just this team was just a whole bunch of ingredients, and we didn't make a dish at all, right? Now we finally got to this point where everybody seems like they know how they fit. This is the most comfortable I've ever seen Eric Gaines here at UAB. And then finally it's okay, he's an impact guy. He's not just a scorer. He's confident in shooting his three. He gets steals, he gets blocks, rebounds, assists, everything. That's his role. And Butter was coming off the bench half the time. Just go look at it. It's crazy. Game by game, we didn't know what we were. Coaches didn't know how to put it together, and it took time. I'm curious to see. I went back and I looked at SDSU's. It's not that much. All of the ins and outs. You see players here and there probably due to injury. But ours, I just feel like we've grown more than any team in the nation. And I think it says we're the hottest team right now, but sometimes it just sounds like a team that just got on the heater. That's not us. We're not a team that just got on the heater. We're a team that has actually grown and developed into something, and we finally figured it out at this time. So I'm curious to see what this version of the team does in the tourney, because I think this team, the other stuff is what all of the experts are talking about. They're not talking about this team that we see now.
I love it. And Darren, I also love something you just said. The story is still being written. Like, this story ain't done yet. You know, hopefully they'll get it done Friday. We'll come back Friday night to get ready for maybe an Auburn preview or something like that. That's going to be awesome. But again, I know.
Don't sleep
all
on
right, it could be. Yeah, don't sleep on the Ivy.
That's one of the trendy upsets is people are looking at Yale over Auburn. I keep seeing that too.
And not UAB though, but okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I know we're 30 minutes into it. I know we said 20 minutes earlier, but that's okay. Great discussion. Great preview in regards to UAB and San Diego State. But again, guys, we'll see you Friday afternoon at Cahaba Brewing Company. Dave West, the Dave West, Mr. Chardog himself, texted me right before we hopped on and said that he is going to be in the building at Cahaba Brewing Company. Let's go. Happy hour. We're going to have a good time. We're watching UAB hopefully get a dub. But Jimmy, go ahead and send us out until next time.
Guys, this is the most exciting time of the year. Keep dreaming. It's March Madness, man. Go Blazers.